So I went to Duke. I grew up in New York City. And it's funny that you say that about how traditionally when you're at Duke, you don't get a ton of, at least for me, there wasn't like a huge art scene there when I was there. But that was actually kind of a reason that I chose the school, weirdly enough, because I went to a very artsy high school and I was sort of looking for a place where I would kind of like learn about other things besides the arts and kind of grow as a person in all areas, because that informs art, knowing about all other types of things. And so I wanted to meet people that weren't just actors and, dancers and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I chose Duke, strangely enough. But I have been working as an actor now for, I don't know, something like 15 years. And I'm a professional acting coach. I coach professional actors on auditions. Sometimes I'm an on-set acting coach, and acting and the entertainment industry has basically been my life since I graduated. So yeah, I mean, like I want to answer whatever questions might be helpful to everyone or whatever anybody's interested in. So yeah, like let's talk.
Yeah. The first questions I had, personally, I was interested in like, what is the entry process like to get into acting? Because I know, well, say for instance, like someone here may graduate with, I don't know, like a degree in econ or going on the finance track, but they also have that subtle passion that they want to follow too. So I was wondering like the entry process.
Well, the thing about the arts that sometimes makes it different or sometimes can be perceived as hard is that it can often feel, unlike more traditional paths like, going into medicine, going into law, those have very set ways that you achieve those goals. And the arts really don't have that. People can choose to go to grad school if you would like, but that's not an absolute necessity. And so something that kind of makes at least the acting industry a little bit daunting, but also maybe a little bit exciting, is that everybody kind of has their own way of figuring out how to navigate the industry. And I think that the thing that I will say like definitively is that, especially in the arts, there's a lot of people acting as like authority figures about like, don't do this and like never do that or always do that or this will always be the case. Any kind of like broad stroke generalities, just kind of fucking throw that all out the window, because I think that like that can really be dangerous to sort of accept what people say of like, never do this, or how like people say that sometimes in different fields, and especially in the arts, I just think there are no rules. And I think that as long as you're not doing anything like that's dangerous or harmful or heinous or goes against your personal integrity, I would just be careful not to take what anybody says is necessarily true, because that can actually like keep you from doing certain things, or sending an email to somebody you think is like a little bit too big to receive an email from you. Like, send that email. Who cares? As long as you're professional and as long as you are presenting yourself and are kind, like you really have to go for it and advocate for yourself in the arts. And that's like something that can be a little bit hard to cultivate, is like strong advocacy for yourself. So that's kind of like, if I was going to say generally, like you have to be willing to advocate for yourself, and you have to be willing to make mistakes, and you have to be like really, really brave. Because you have to, there's a lot of rejection in the arts, as you know.
Yeah. Did you find that advocacy like came when you were an undergrad, or did it take time for you to actually advocate for yourself, whether it be, for a role that you want, or like, whether it be pay too?
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't think I had to do much of that as an undergrad. I think that it was kind of like, you signed up for your arts classes and you auditioned for plays, and that was sort of like all that was happening on campus. But then when it comes to actually like, moving to a city or suddenly competing in a much larger pool, that's when you really have to start to have some fight and some bravery, because it's just, there's a lot of people out there trying to do this, which is great. But even more of a reason for people to realize that like a career is not going to create itself. You kind of have to really, really have a lot of drive and work very hard and have a lot of persistence and have a lot of patience, because I'm not going to say never, but for most people, that's not going to happen overnight. Every once in a while it does, but I think it's important to be ready for the long haul if this is something you really, really want to pursue.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. Another question I had, so did you know you wanted to become an actress while you were at Duke? Like, did you go straight into being a full-time actress, or was there another step you took after you graduated?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to be. I went to a conservatory style performing arts high school. So I had already had 4 years of training before I came to Duke. And so I already really knew that that was what I wanted. It doesn't have to be something that it honestly doesn't have to be something that at any age. I actually know of people that got into acting later in life and ended up having really awesome, successful careers. So I think the idea that age is something that can limit you in terms of when you decide to go for it, like throw that out the window too. Because if you discover you have a passion for anything really at any age, I think that if you really, really, really feel strongly about it, you should pursue it and go for it, and disregard what anybody says about not. But for me personally, yes, I did kind of go straight into it after I graduated Duke.
Wow, that's crazy. Because I'm just thinking like graduating, then wow, then just like, but I'm glad you knew what you wanted to do, because I know, and I'm glad that you pinpointed that, it could take as long as you want. Because I know some people are, get wrapped up in like, what am I trying to do once I graduate? Or I don't even know what I want to do now, let alone what I want to major in.
But that's okay. Like I think that there can be a lot of societal pressure when it comes to that. And I think that if you don't know what you want to do right now, like that's what you're in college for. Because to try out new things and study all types of things and find out where your passions are. And if you still don't know after college, that's okay too. It's just important to stay open. And when you do think that maybe you have something that you might be interested in, to actually go for it and see if that strikes a fire within you, because that's worth pursuing if it does.
Yeah, 100% agree. So tell me, what's your favorite project that you worked on? I know you've done so many. You have to have some stories.
Well, I mean, obviously my most notable one was Orange is the New Black, but if I have to tell you, like, and of course that was the most exciting purely because of what it was. But if I have to tell you like my absolute favorite, it was this play that I did in the East Village in New York City. It was so strange, and it was a drag show style play about 10 characters that Meryl Streep has played, all getting trapped in a house on a reality television show, living together. So it was wild, and it was, there was all these different Meryls, like Sophie's Choice and The Devil Wears Prada, and all her iconic roles, and each of us played one of them, and some of them were played by men, some of them were played by women, and there was singing, and it was just really, really wild. So that honestly has been the most fun I've had professionally since I graduated. But obviously it's not something any of you will ever be able to see, but still it was great.
Oh yeah, that sounds like it's a lot of fun. Also, I was curious to know, what does your day-to-day look like as an actress? Like, are you just reading scripts all day? I know you also mentioned that in your bio that you work on, other things too, so.
Yeah. So my day job is that I'm a coach. So I will coach other people during the day on their professional auditions, or sometimes if somebody is actually prepping for a role, I will coach them on that. And then I have my own auditions that I have to prep and tape. And especially now with COVID, I mean, as everybody has probably gotten used to, everything is virtual. So pre the pandemic, lots of auditions were obviously in person, but now primarily auditions are self-taped at home. So in the same way that everybody had to get used to learning virtually and learning on Zoom, actors had to get used to learning how to tape their own auditions at home. So when I have auditions, I have to tape them, and it's sort of like a full production that has to happen. I have to put on, get my costume together, get somebody to read with me, set up the lights, all that kind of stuff, and then give a performance that I feel strong enough to send to my agent or my manager, and then they send it to casting. So any one of those things or all of those things could be happening in any day of the week, but the arts especially are sort of unpredictable. So my days do tend to be pretty random. Some days are slow, and then some days are very, very busy.
Yeah, I didn't even realize how the arts are like they've been like drastically affected by the pandemic, because I can't imagine like changing and trying to like record different scenes and propping the camera here, propping the camera there.
Yeah, I mean, lots of all the theaters closed, and people started doing theater virtually, like readings online, and sometimes plays are being staged on stages but recorded so that people can watch them later on their computer. So it really, really, really hit the theater scene very hard. The film and TV also, it hit hard, but it has come back a little bit faster than theater has.
And are you still working virtually or in person for a lot of your auditions?
So far it's all virtual, but like in next month I'm doing a workshop of a play, and that's going to be virtual too. Like we're going to do the workshop from our homes. It's not going to be performed live on stage.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time with my personal questions, so let's open it up to the audience. Does anybody have, I'm sure you'll with questions for Dana. Feel free to unmute yourself and I guess say your name and your year, and then ask your
And they don't have to be serious questions. They can be fun questions if you'd rather that too. Whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm here.
Yeah.
I guess I can ask a question. Oh, sorry. My name's Willa, and I'm a sophomore, and I'm actually also from New York. And I grew up having a lot of friends like going to LaGuardia and stuff because I'm a dancer. And I'm curious about what the transition was like for you from New York to Duke, and then I'm assuming back to New York. So like what that experience was like, kind of traveling from New York to Durham, and what the differences were.
I'm sure you had something like that too. Wait, where did you go to school?
I went to a school called Packer in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Honestly, it was rough. If I'm being fully honest, it was rough. And it was kind of a culture shock, and I wasn't sure if I should stay. On the first semester, I was like, I think I need to transfer. But I mean, I went to public school. I grew up in the city my whole life, and I wasn't super used to the culture at Duke. And I don't know if it's the same, or I haven't been there in, over 10 years, but it felt very rich, and it felt kind of self-segregating and cliquey and fratty. All things that I was not used to going to public art school in New York City. And I kind of remember thinking that I just didn't know if I was going to find anybody that I could relate to. And I'm glad that I gave myself some time, because I love, 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 love Duke. And I'm so, so happy that I went there. And I have, I have so many friends that went other places and they always say, they're like, God, you love your school so much. And I'm like, yes, I do. So, I mean, I think that at first it was really hard. And then over time, I found the people that I wanted to find. And I ended up having an amazing experience and a great group of friends, but I'm not going to lie, it was difficult at first. But at the same time, I'm thankful that I didn't go to a place that was exactly like the experience I had in New York. And I'm thankful because I think it's important to experience all of things without being very specific. But I think that like having an experience like that and having it be challenging is important.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, Dana. I was wondering, Alexis, I'm a pre-law major. I'm a junior. I'm just kind of fascinated by the entertainment industry, not really looking to go into it.
Sure.
But I know that a lot of people talk about like acting in terms of like whether it be TV shows and movies as sort of an avenue. But you mentioned that you were doing like theater and plays. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and the opportunities that presents, in relation to the more like formal or not formal, but the TV and movie side.
Yeah, it's kind of changing now, but when I graduated, it used to really be that like, if you wanted to do film and television, you should go to LA. And if you wanted to do theater, you should go to New York or maybe Chicago. There is starting to be more and more theater in LA now too, but New York is really considered the theater town. And so, doing theater in New York can be a very good way for people to get to know you as an actor. And then you kind of also can segue into TV and film that way, because casting directors and agents and managers, like everybody's going to the theater in the city if you're in the entertainment industry. And so if you're in plays and you're being seen, then people will call you in for auditions for TV shows and film and stuff like that. A lot of it, but then there's other actors who just are not theater actors, because it is a bit of a different skill set. And so if you aren't that kind of an actor, then it might be better for you to focus on just TV and film. And in that case, like nowadays you can kind of break into that in both places, but LA and New York are really considered the best. But then there is a lot of stuff filming in Atlanta now too. So, but as far as theater goes, I've always been mostly a theater actor. I've only recently started to do more TV and film. And so that kind of just ended up being the thing that I got into first when I graduated. It was just doing a lot of theater, a lot of like downtown theater, a lot of indie theater, a lot of experimental stuff. And that's really fun. And I think that that can be the way that you meet a lot of people that you end up collaborating with down the line, like a lot of your fellow artist people. And I think that may be the case in Willa. You said you're in dance, right? That probably is the similar case in dance, is like finding your crew, like who you want to like create art with, because that I think is a really important thing as an artist, is to find your people, because having a support system and having people that you can make your own work with while you're trying to get jobs that actually pay is really helpful and important emotionally. Can I ask, what made you interested in coming to this as a pre-law student, Alexis?
Yeah, so even though I'm pre-law, like law is something that like you can go to law school and sort of do whatever. And I'm interested like in sports law primarily, but entertainment and sports law and like the intersection of that. And there are some intersections, and I would like to land in New York, so that might like put me in certain spaces. So I was just sort of curious to hear from your perspective, and not necessarily from the law perspective, but about like New York and just the entertainment industry in general.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Great. Wait, was there something specific you wanted me to answer that I didn't answer?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Feel free to chime in, everyone. This is just a casual Q&A.
Yeah, just casual Q&A. Anybody have any questions?
I'm just, oh, go ahead. Oh, you. Okay, yeah, similar to the person before me. Like, I also like don't really have an interest in getting directly into the entertainment industry, but it's always fascinated me.
Mhm.
And I was just curious to learn more about how like the whole like talent acquisition process works and how like you get how management companies kind of find new talent and then how does that then lead to like people landing roles and different opportunities in the industry?
That's a good question. So I can mostly speak about it from an actor who's looked for management and looked for agents. I have friends that are agents, so I can only say what they've told me, but I think that a lot has changed over the past 10 and 15 years because of what's happened in, social media and the internet. And so people are really finding talent on social media a lot more than they used to. And having a presence online is very good for an artist. So people like to complain about, I probably don't have to talk to you guys about it. You're probably super tech savvy and everything, but if you're not, get tech savvy if you want to pursue the arts, because making sure that you are as, out there and your work is as accessible as possible, or at least your contact info is really important. So I know that they look for talent online. It used to be that people, like I said, went to theater to see talent. There's also things called showcases. So like if you go to like a conservatory style program, or if you go to grad school, they will, at the end of your program, they will have showcases where you present scenes or what pieces basically for agents and managers and casting directors to come see. So that's a way that people find talent. And then also through recommendations, word of mouth, people recommending friends of people to things. I frankly, for the most part, have always found representation from cold reaches and cold emailing people, and not without something to say, but I think that especially in the entertainment industry, and this may be true of other industries, but I don't know, there's a lot of idea of gatekeeping, and the idea that you have to follow certain channels in order to achieve certain things or to get in certain rooms. And I think that, like I said at the beginning, trying to just disregard those kinds of ideas as best as possible, because I like Gary Vee. I don't know if anybody else listens to Gary Vee, but I like Gary Vee because he really talks about really grinding and sort of reaching for people that you might think are too big to be reached for, and doing it graciously, but going for it and putting yourself out there, because I've had things happen from just cold reaching out to people who had no idea who I was. And if I had listened to people who say never do that, or then I wouldn't have had those opportunities. So that's for the most part how I've gotten management. One manager that I've worked with, who is actually my current manager, came from a personal recommendation, but other times and other agents have just been through blind emails. But thanks for that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any more questions?
I was just curious what your opinions were on the streaming services and how it's affecting, I guess, kind of the acting industry. I know obviously you had a role on a Netflix show, but you also do theater. So I was just curious kind of what your perspective is on how Netflix and Hulu and all these streaming services are changing kind of the acting landscape.
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't say that I'm educated on it enough to give you a very detailed answer, but I will say that the way that actors are paid obviously has changed with streaming services, and the market is oversaturated because of streaming services, and that's there's pros and cons to that. The cons are obviously that you don't make the same kind of money you would make on a network television show on a streaming service necessarily. Obviously, if you're a series lead, you can make tons, but somebody that's coming on for just a couple of episodes or whatever, you're not making tons of money. However, the positive side of that is that there is so much casting, there's just so many projects being made. And so there's more opportunities to be cast in things, and there's more projects to work on. And that's good, because the more that's happening, the more you have opportunities to get roles. And but then at the same time, it's kind of like, well, there's a quality thing. Like, I don't know, I used to have a Netflix subscription. Now I'm talking shit about Netflix, but like, I don't have a Netflix subscription anymore because I haven't been interested in stuff on Netflix for a very long time. So this can't be public, right? But there's pros and cons to both aspects of the streaming thing. A lot of really good content is coming out of stuff on streaming, maybe not necessarily on Netflix, but like other things. And then of course, ever since I graduated, the concept of an entire season of a show just dropping all at once, that wasn't a thing before streaming services. And I mean, I'm curious, what do you guys think about that? Because there's some shows where it's like, oh, you have to wait every week for a new episode. And then there's ones where it's just like, boom, if you want to be up for the next like 38 hours and just watch stuff, you can. But like, does anybody have a preference, or what do you think, Justine?
I actually really appreciate now when shows drop every week, because I have like no self-control when it comes to watching TV, and I will binge like a whole season and waste hours and hours on end. So like when Euphoria came out every week, I actually really appreciated it because it helped me kind of space it out. And I feel like I enjoyed each episode more than just binging it in one, like, as you know, straight shot through the season. But
Yeah, I can understand that too.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions?
Oh, I guess I can go. Well, I was wondering, like, how do you like stay hopeful, or like, stay like level-headed during times when you never know when a show is going to get canceled, or when I don't know, the project doesn't go through. Like, I know you guys have to deal with, a lot of things as actresses, whether it be rejection or disappointment.
Yeah,
How do you deal with all of that?
it's a really good question. I actually like, I do create a lot of my own work. So, and when I say work, I'm not saying like I'm sitting here writing a script or anything. I'm not. I make really weird, silly character videos and I post them on Instagram, and I have like TikTok accounts as alter egos and shit like that. And that is very entertaining for me. And like people that follow me seem to like it. So that is a way that I can stay creative when I'm not necessarily working on a project. But I think that it is kind of important to find ways to stay creative that are self-generated, in whatever way that takes form. It doesn't even have to be in the mode of art that you're pursuing. Like, it could be something else, as long as it keeps you excited and keeps that creative fire going. Because I think that relying on outside sources for your, to sustain you creatively can put you in a position where you feel very effect, because then you're constantly like, oh, I really need this part, or I really need to connect with this person in order to work, and then I'll be creatively fulfilled. Like, yes, of course it would be great if that can happen, but that can't be counted upon. And so it can create desperation, which is never a good way to be creating work or auditioning. Like, you don't want to be auditioning in the state of desperation. So I think it is really important to figure out how you can rely on yourself to stay creatively fulfilled, because if you can figure that out, then it makes, the other ways in which you work a lot less, you can just be a little bit more chill about it. And I think that when you're chill is when you create your best work. Not necessarily like you're lazy, but when you're not like needing to be liked so much, or needing somebody's approval, or needing someone to cast you or give you a job. I have never found that was a good way for me to approach something. So that's how I stay creatively fulfilled. But also, like I said, about finding the people that you want to create things with. You know, I have a lot of friends now in the arts, and we make projects together because we like each other's work and we're friends and we like making things together. And that's another way that you can stay creatively fulfilled in between jobs. So I highly recommend that. That's a really good question, if I may say that.
No, thank you for that. I love that part of you talking about your circle too, because the company you keep, you know, speaks a lot. Like, I guess it has a huge impact in what you do, and not only like your career, but you know how you are mentally and everything too. So
100%. You have to make sure that you are really surrounding yourself with people that have your best interests at heart. And sometimes that can be a little difficult to discern. But the thing that I will say is if you're around people where you consistently like leave them and feel kind of like weird about yourself, or like something's not quite sitting right, or you just kind of feel invalidated, you might want to like check out like maybe the vibe of the person. Because I think that the people that you surround yourself with should make you feel great about yourself and make you feel loved, and they should be people that you really love and you really want to help too, because that sort of mutual support is the best kind of relationship. At least that's what I have found to be true.
yeah, and celebrating the small victories.
Exactly. Yes, you have to validate the wins, no matter how small, because they are important. And if you only focus on the losses, it's just going to be a big fucking downer.
Yeah, sure is.
Question. I was wondering, could you speak a little bit about any advice you have in terms of like students looking to break into the industry, maybe not necessarily like on the talent side, but like just like the entertainment business in general?
Sure. It kind of does depend on what avenue you might be thinking about, but I definitely think that reading and watching videos on the internet, researching the field or the area of the entertainment industry that you're interested in is really important. And obviously finding people who are willing to maybe sit down with you and have a cup of coffee and you can just pick their brain, though that's a very good way. I kind of feel like I wished I'd learned more while I was in college, before I left college, about what was going to be needed of me to really kind of break into things. So it's good that everybody is doing this and that you guys have access to this. But there was definitely like a learning curve period for me after I graduated, figuring out like, oh, this is what's required of me if I really want to have a shot. So I think it's good that planning ahead now and finding and like taking time while you're in college to reach out to people and learn from people in the industry that you're interested in going into is really good. Especially because people think you usually want something from them when you reach out to them. But if you're in college and you're like, I'm just researching, I'm just trying to learn. Like, I think that is attractive to people. Be like, oh, sure, you're in college. Yeah, I'll talk to you for a little bit. I'll give you a couple minutes of my time. And then you can stay in touch with those people and create relationships that maybe in a couple of years when you graduate, you can call them up and be like, hey, and remember we talked. And I think that's a good way to go about it. I don't know if that was helpful at all, but that.
No, definitely. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, we'll take like what? Let's reach for two more questions.
I have another question. I was just curious if you have like a favorite actor or actress, or if there's like a particular person in the industry that you like draw inspiration from, or you kind of consider like a mentor.
That's a good question. I love Olivia Colman right now. as an actress. I don't know her personally, but I think she's awesome. I love Christian Bale as an actor. I actually recently had an actress who was a personal friend of mine, who was a mentor, pass away. She was a theater actress and a TV actress. I'm not sure anybody would necessarily know her, but she had like a very notable role in a couple of episodes of Seinfeld back in the day. But she was a mentor for me. We were in a play together maybe like 10 years ago, and we became friends, and she just became somebody that I could call up and ask advice to. And, you know, it's great to find people like that. Usually they tend to be older than you because they've seen more and have had more experience, but finding people that care about you and like are interested in helping you move forward in your career, and so that you can just like email or pick up a phone or text when you have a question. You're like, what do you think about this? That's really helpful. Her name was Catherine Cates, and I don't think you may or may not have seen her in things. She's been in a lot of things here and there, but smaller roles. So yeah, I'd say those three in terms of people that are really inspiring to me. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Can I take you up on your fun question?
Yes, please.
How do you feel about what happened at the Oscars?
I was going to
Will
ask
Smith?
you guys what you thought about the Oscars. I was like, I don't know if that's off limits.
No, I wasn't sure either if it was.
I'm really curious about how the industry, like individuals, are handling it, because I do think that comedians are some of the few people left that like can really say whatever they want, and the fact that Will Smith stood up and took that away was like definitely groundbreaking. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
I mean, well, first of all, I wasn't watching. I happened to like, my friend, nobody texted me what had happened. It was more like my friend was like, oh, are you watching the Oscars? And I was like, no. And then I was like, oh, I guess I should go on Twitter and see what people are saying about the Oscars. And suddenly I go on Twitter and I'm like seeing these videos of Will Smith, and I'm like, what the actual fuck is happening right now? And like, at first it looks like it is like, did he actually hit him? It seems super real to me. I don't know if what the consensus is, but it seemed like it was real. Yeah. I think I wish he hadn't done it. That's really, I wish he hadn't done it for himself, because he was about to win the Oscar. And I wish everybody would have today been talking about the fact that Will Smith finally won a fucking Oscar instead of being like Will Smith accosted Chris Rock on stage. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's ever okay for anybody to attack anybody. I think the joke was obviously also not in good taste, of course. But I actually would have been fine if he just yelled at him, like, don't talk about my fucking wife. Like, if he had done that, I would have been like, that's right. Like, stand up for her and like, awesome and stuff. But the actual like violence, I think was pretty bad. But I want to hear what everybody else thinks. And like, I'm open to other points of view. Like, what is everybody else's thoughts on it? Because it is quite a thing to have it just happened.
Personally, I didn't mind him slapping Chris Rock. I just agreed that like I wish he wouldn't have done it in that moment. Like, if it had come out that at the Vanity Fair after party that Will Smith had slapped Chris Rock, I would have been like, well,
that's a good point.
Because I mean, he did it. I mean, it was a decent slap. Let's not, he got him good. But it was, it wasn't some crazy like
right
assault on him. So I just wish that he wouldn't have done it like on the stage on national television. And like you said, like we would be talking about the fact that he finally won this Oscar, which is like more than well deserved. But if it had come out that he had did it at the after party, I really wouldn't have cared. I would have been like, more power to you, Will.
No, I haven't heard that hot take until this moment, and I like it. Who else? This is an important I think this is a really good conversation to be having right now. Is somebody named Kaya speaking right now? Because she's muted if she's trying to. Nia, what do you think?
I'm still blown away from it. Like, I don't know, the whole joke in and of itself, as soon as they pan the camera to Jada's face, like, because I know she talked about in like 2018, like the stuff she was dealing with hair loss and alopecia. So obviously it was a sensitive topic, but I was just mind blown by, like, did they not do like is it a reading beforehand? Did any other woman not hear this joke? Like, there has
That's a question too, because those things are vetted.
Yeah, so and I know Chris Rock had no harm. Like, I don't think there was a malicious intent, because him and Will Smith, they're like brothers. They're tight. They're like family. I feel like like I've seen all the pictures of them. They're very close. So but yeah, I do think it really took away from the moment from Will Smith, because even, I don't know, even like they panned the camera to like Serena Williams and Venus Williams, and they were all just like stunned. And
yeah, the pictures of all the different celebs' reactions to it happening are very interesting.
But
like, everybody's just like, yes.
But I also agree with his acceptance speech and how, like, it's only so much they can take. Smith was talking about, you know, being in like the limelight, like they're expected to just take all these punches and just sit back and, you know, pretend like it's all good. And, you know, he's obviously not trying to portray a perfect man. So I did understand like that point of view too, which, you know, was hard, because like in the beginning, it seemed like he was laughing at the joke, but then I think he saw Jada's reaction, and then like he just had to defend her really quickly. So I don't know, it was a lot going on.
It is a lot. Yeah.
So I just wanted to add, I think Chris was off prompter. Like, if you go back and watch it, like, it seems like a very off the cuff comment. So it wouldn't have been clear. It was just something that he said and was trying to be funny. And he has made jokes about Jada before. And I think that is why to them it felt personal, because to me, it looked like he was off prompter, and that was not something that someone had written in like a joke that they had gone over. It was just, he was making an offhanded comment, and that was why it was personal.
That very well may be.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I was like reading online a little bit too, how like in rehearsals, apparently Chris Rock didn't say the joke, which is really interesting. But it's interesting, like the commentary around how like Jada cheated on Will and how like that's being dragged into it. And so it feels like kind of just identity politics and ego all coming to a head on like a national stage, which is just kind of crazy.
Yes. I mean, I think we're all just like, what just happened? Yeah.
And he hopes he gets invited back to the Oscars after that. Apparently it's like it's an open case now. Now the Academy is starting to review the case. I'm like, oh wow.
Well, I saw that something about the investigation is open, and I'm like, what is there to investigate? We saw what happened. Like, if you want to make a determination about it, fine. But like, who are you dusting for fingerprints? Like, what are we talking about? I actually so I didn't know about Jada having alopecia until this happened. And I actually think that had this not been a thing, the joke would have probably gone over my head, and I would have not really, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have even registered what was being said. But I know that like plenty of people know that she's been very vocal about it, but I think that there also is a lot of people that had no idea and probably would have just been like, oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah. I personally, I didn't hear about the whole alopecia thing. Like, I didn't really get the joke until they panned like the pictures alongside each other. Like, I saw that on Twitter, and that's
Mhm.
I was like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, from him just saying it, first of all, I never even watched G.I. Jane, so I wouldn't I wouldn't have known in the first
Either. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yes, the idea of like, are we saying that it's okay to, assault comedians now for making jokes that we find offensive? That is also a thing too. Um, but I like Alexis's idea of just kind of clocking him at the after party if he gets a chance. I mean, no, I'm not condoning violence, but you know what I'm saying. Like, but if it's a moment between friends where he's like, hey, that wasn't cool, like, I guess they could take it outside.
I thought it was a little bit ironic just because I think the role he was accepting the Oscar for, Richard Williams, I think he was a very like big family man. And so I know Will Smith's made some comment about how like he's a fierce defender of his family. And I just thought like the juxtaposition of that coming right after he had defended his wife is kind of ironic, but
Yeah. I also really like Chris Rock. Like as a comedian, I think Chris Rock is one of the best. So I didn't love the whole thing. I wish he hadn't said the joke. I wish the whole thing hadn't happened.
Yeah, he was very professional after though, because I don't know about, but my reflexes, they would have kicked in. I don't know how he held his composure.
He really, really, really was impressive on that. But I think he was really in shock. Like he really didn't seem to know, he had no idea what's happening. And the adrenaline when you're in the middle of that kind of a performance on such a, wide audience and stuff, like I think you don't even necessarily feel pain in that moment. It's more of just like, your adrenaline is so high and keeping it together. And I think he did keep it together pretty impressively.
Yeah. No. But yeah, if anybody doesn't have
Anybody else want to weigh in?
anything else to say.
Well, I just want to say that I am happy to have Nia give my information to all of you. And I'm also on social media if you want to connect there. Happy to answer anybody's questions individually or personally or, down the line, like feel free to reach out.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you so much though for just being so generous with your time. This actually means a lot. And I know it means a lot to all the Bow members to hear your perspective on the performing arts, which is not often talked about here at Duke, and just for honesty. And you were a lot of fun too. It was great talking.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Like we want this to be fun.